Good morning.
Well, good morning all. It's 9:31, so we'll call the meeting to order. We have 7 members. We have Councillor Oosterhoff on Zoom and 6 here, so we have a quorum. The agenda, I've been asked to add two pieces in the new business. Otherwise, I've not heard from anybody else. Does anybody else need to add anything into the printed agenda? And seeing none then, I ask for a motion for the approval of the agenda as amended by the addition of 2 pieces under new business. Jen and Councillor Glenn. Discussion. Seeing none, those in favour, those opposed, you have an agenda. The confirmation of the minutes of January the 18th, we have heard no comments on those for corrections. Are there any? And if not, I look for a motion for somebody who was present to approve those. Don and a seconder. Paul, thank you very much. You have the confirmation of the minutes, that the minutes be approved. Those in favour, those opposed. So we have a set of minutes for January the 18th. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. If any is known, maybe you could state it now. And if not, my usual warning that when you suddenly realize you've forgotten, please do so immediately. I see none at present. Presentations. I don't believe there are any presentations, unless they've come up in the last day or so. So we come down to stat business. Part 4, 168 Wellington Street. And Philip, I think they're all yours this morning, I understand.
Oh, you gotta log in for me quick.
I was kind of hoping I wouldn't do that.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So this presentation is to receive permission to install a reversible mural on the north wall of 168 Wellington Street. 168 Wellington Street is a prominent building located at the intersection of Brock and Wellington Street on the northwestern corner. The 3.5-story stone building, designed by George Brown, has a rounded corner facing the intersection, has 20 bays, has a distinct first floor with segmental arches, and is an alternating pattern of windows/openings on each floor. Importantly, 168 Wellington Street has 2 prominent facades, but the facade being proposed to be changed in this application is the northern one, which is to the right here on this slide, which has the least amount of detailing. The property is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Importantly, the northern wall, which is covered in parging, is not mentioned in the designation bylaw. The entire designation bylaw is in the associated report related to this application. The applicant seeks to add a temporary mural to the northern wall, which is currently covered in painted cement-based parging, which is there for structural and preservation purposes. Importantly, the painted parging is not a heritage feature and acts as a barrier over the historic material of the building. A painted mural over the already painted parging should not damage the underlying masonry, should be completely reversible, and would be an opportunity to animate what is a heavily trafficked alley that connects Hanson Memorial Parking Garage to Wellington Street. The final design and artist has not yet been determined, but an outreach campaign has already been underway with artists who have experience with large murals. The outreach package included a preliminary scope of work, the in-effect design, designation bylaw, and a short history of George Brown's work in Kingston. The initial outreach campaign email explicitly notes that 168 Wellington Street is a designated property, and that the new mural will need to consider the integration with and or be considerate of the heritage aspects of the building and reflect the heritage attributes and complement the colors of the building and surrounding area in order to create an experience that expands the aesthetic of the heritage facade. The installation of a mural is an opportunity to address the stark contrast between the two highly engaging character-defining features to the south and east and the blank northern-facing wall. Further animation of this facade, provided by the potentially 14-meter tall by 20 meters wide, so long as the mural is sympathetic to the building and surrounding area and does not draw more attention to the building itself, would create visual engagement along this highly trafficked route while balancing the visual appreciation of all three publicly visible facades. To ensure the final mural design will respect the building/area, Heritage Planning staff in the city's Arts and Cultural Department will be provided with the concept of the artwork for review and approval prior to installation. This is a condition of this approval. Further, Heritage Planning staff in the City of Kingston's Arts and Cultural Services Department will be consulted on the proposed scope of work that is provided to the selected artist. This is also a condition of approval. Additionally, the mural production process will be subject to the city's public art policy, which guides professionally delivered art projects across the city. Part of this process includes bringing together several professionals who work with public art and artists on a regular basis with the goal of delivering high-quality installations on both public and private properties in the city. This mural review process, which is guided by the city's public art policy, will bring together best practices from the art sector, as well as examinations of public realm impacts, while also providing for a partnership opportunity with Heritage Services staff. In attendance, we have the Manager of Arts and Sector Development, Danica Blockhead, who can help address questions on how the city's public art policy is implemented in the city. This project, while it is still evolving, provides an opportunity to appropriately animate the existing highly visible blank northern facade in a reversible manner. Having previous experience with heritage proposals and permits, the applicant is aware of the importance of this building and seeks to enhance it further by temporarily beautifying the last facade of this building that is currently devoid of character. Finally, city staff will be kept apprised of the progress of this mural proposal, as well as be provided with the final design for review and approval prior to installation. Highlighted here in gray, as noted in the presentation, Heritage Services staff will be consulted on the artist's proposed scope of work, as well as be provided with a final design for review and approval prior to installation to ensure it is sympathetic to the building/area. Further, the finalized scope of work will include the property designation bylaw and encourage the integration of the heritage building's attributes and surrounding context into the finalized design. This report and this recommendation in its entirety is available in the associated report for your review. Thank you.
Does staff want to make any further comment at this point? No, okay, thank you. Committee members, questions, comments? Jen?
I think this is awesome. I think integrating more murals into the city is a lovely way to address a lot of these facades that, that are blank and have nothing on it. Honestly, my concern would be that it would be too boring if it's completely subservient to the existing building and in muted colors. So I would actually encourage not necessarily that. I mean, I still understand the need to address and acknowledge and integrate, but I think that, I thought the proposal was very too integrated that we could have something more vibrant. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
Good, thank you. Councillor Oosterhoff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. I would probably agree with those comments, though I'm excited about this. And is this a funded? Are we going to be able to fund this? Can I ask that question, Mr. Chair? And is this all privately being done?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this is a private property, which is, in my understanding, receiving some funds from the Downtown Kingston Business Improvement Association. And so it is mostly a private property, but there is some public sector funds going in public, not public from the city, though. Public from in terms of the association. Thank you.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair, so that's interesting and helpful. Thank you. I guess that what I appreciated with the past comments where I can't say it as well, but I guess if we're going to have a say, I think that's where we might be able to give it a little color, give the artist some expression. But I'm not artistic, but I certainly appreciate what she said, and I'm sure it's still going to be beautiful. But we'll go from there. I trust that things should be able to develop well if we're actually going to see it before it's done. I guess, but I'll leave it to others because I'm not artistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members? Jane?
I think this is a really exciting project too. Sounds like it should really enhance that building, hopefully. And I guess I have a couple of questions though, and one is about could you explain the timeline and steps involved with implementing the mural? That's one.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to invite my colleague Danica to address that question there, if possible. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the question. So the timeline really that we have follows a process outlined in our public art policy in terms of acquisition of a public art mural. For this project specifically, it's a two-stage process. The first is an invitation to submit a letter of interest. So this has gone to a short list of artists that has been selected by Carico and the DBIA in consultation with Arts and Culture Services at the City of Kingston. So following the submission of a statement of interest, those are then reviewed in terms of what is the feasibility of what the artist's capacity is to deliver the mural, what skills do they have that align with the requirements of delivering such a large-scale mural within the timelines. And then we shift to stage two, which is the development of a detailed art proposal. And so that's really when the artist develops the concept, demonstrates and shares the images of the artworks, provides renderings, sort of superimposed on the building. And so between those two processes, we're really looking at a summer installation of the mural.
Great. And I noticed there was consultation. What's the consultation process going to look like, and where does that fit in with the timeline?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. So generally through our public art policy, we do have opportunities for public consultation on the shortlisted design proposals. This is something that we must follow for any public art projects that we do on public or private property. Right now, we're working with Carico and the DBIA to determine what that actually looks like. Again, this is a private public art project on private property, so they're not subject to that consultation piece. But we have had discussions about the opportunity to potentially share for a short period of time through social media the shortlisted design proposals for public feedback and engagement. The engagement itself and the feedback would not necessarily determine the outcome in terms of which mural is selected. That really does reside with the board of the BIA, Carico, and then Arts and Culture Services staff and Heritage Services, but it's a really good way to get a sense of how the public is going to respond to the mural and also promote that it's actually coming to downtown Kingston.
Just one more question. So how would you envision how the public would access and respond to this then, the proposal?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, in terms of the engagement component, from our experience in running these public engagement, it varies. I think there's generally a strong desire and interest in seeing public art in the downtown core. It certainly aligns with the mandate of the DBIA to sort of attract people to downtown Kingston and to support local businesses. They obviously, murals and public art can enhance the public realm and the experience of being in the public realm. So generally it's very positive, but art is subjective, and so there's always that element of it too, in terms of people who like it, people who don't like it, but that is really part of the public art process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Go to Don and then to Paul.
Yes, this is certainly an interesting project, and I'm sort of interested in hearing more about it. It's rather new, I think, to the Heritage Committee, and I've been on it a long time. But I guess one question is, has something like this, that is murals applied to historic architecture, are there other examples that where this has been tried and can be judged and so on?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that question. So yes, there are examples in other municipalities across Canada, but also around the world, where public art and murals on heritage properties happen. There's an example, Vancouver is a really great example that we've been looking at in sort of response to this proposal, which does permit murals on heritage properties, but obviously a big component of that, which is different from murals on other private property, is that it has to go through the heritage permit process. And so for Kingston, at least, since I've been at the city and since the public art program has existed, we have not gone through this process. So it's also a first for public art in Kingston. But there are a lot of examples in other municipalities that we refer to in supporting this type of project.
Sorry, Dawn, if I could, and through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add a little bit to that and just sort of reconfirm what Danica has shared. We've not, Ryan and I were just pondering, we can't remember a time when the Heritage Committee has had opportunity to consider a mural installation on a designated property. And so, yes, we're in a new process. And I want to recognize that, because the process in the future applications may differ from the one we're currently following. I think what's really unique about this application is that it's on a facade that has already been painted. And as a result, the addition of this mural is really something that will be quite reversible. So I just want to put that caveat out there, because if this was a proposal that was actually going to alter an attribute in a way that could bring some loss, we certainly would be approaching it very differently than we are now. So yes, it's a new process to us as a committee. It's a new process to us as staff, and we're very thankful to have the arts and culture team available to work with us on this. But I think we are very aware now that we need to do perhaps some foreshadowing of what future applications might look like and how we might move them through this process, depending on the impact that we would see. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd just add to that, the one time I can remember is in dealing with signage. And a couple of times we've had businesses who have shown what they have done, read their signage on heritage buildings, often around the world. You remember we did it over on the bar on the old bank of the TD Bank. So that's, I think, as close over the last few years as we've come to something like this. Don, you.
You spoke about reversibility, and along with that is question of durability, because I think we have seen other sort of painted scenes applied to various buildings around Kingston, and quite frankly, after a couple of years, they sort of look pretty sad. And so the question is, is there any point in a mural if it's going to deteriorate pretty quickly? And likewise, if it doesn't deteriorate quickly, can it be removed when its time has come?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. So it's a really good point, and something that we embed in our public art program overall is a pretty robust maintenance program in support of any public art that's created. So for this mural specifically, the selected artist will be required to submit a maintenance manual along with the proposal that will outline the care and maintenance required to keep the mural in the state that it is once it's installed. So that responsibility to maintain the mural and to provide that funding to do that, to do exactly as you say in terms of maintaining it at its original state so that it continues to have the impact that it was intended, is going to be managed by Carico and the DBIA.
Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, funding was mentioned, and I guess at the moment it's mainly private funding, so a couple of questions around that. One, is there a timeline on the funding, and if the funding is, or the dollars are not in place, what happens then? And if it's public right now, do you know how much has actually been given towards this? And I guess again, is there a budget for it? And how much might that budget be at this point? And maybe that's not known. I mean, obviously it's still very early in the process. So.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to clarify on the budget piece, just for the committee's benefit. This mural is going to be privately funded in its entirety. So currently, and I'm speaking on behalf of our partners on this, they are looking for different grant funds that could support this project and amplify the funding that's been allocated. But between the two partner organizations, they have committed a budget of $50,000 for this mural.
And I certainly hope that money is reached, because this is a fantastic project, and I really hope it goes ahead.
Good, thank you. Further questions? Yes, Councillor Glenn.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a super project. That blank wall really deserves something beautiful on it. So my question is with regards to the selection of the artist, and so who exactly is selecting the artist, and kind of what's the criteria for that selection process, as well as for approving what's moving ahead, just so we have a clear understanding.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. So the process around all aspects of this public art project, including the artist selection project, follows the public art policy. And what that includes is an identification of selection criteria that must be adhered to when selecting an artist and looking at their portfolio of work. So things like artistic excellence, technical qualifications, are really big parts of what is looked at when assessing who should be invited to participate in this project. In terms of the selection of the shortlisted artists to be invited to respond to the call, as mentioned, because this is a privately run public art project, it really lies with the DBIA and Carico. However, there has been collaboration between these two partners and Arts and Culture Services staff who manage the city's public art program in identifying artists that are, potentially a good fit for this project and have the skill set to carry it out.
Other questions? And seeing none, members of the public, do we have anybody on? No? And you're there, members of the public then. Motion and a seconder for one motion with 7 conditions. Paul Penfield, and seconded by Jennifer Demeter. Further discussion? Yes, Don.
As Jennifer Campbell mentioned, this is sort of new territory for the committee, and I'm a little concerned that we are comfortable with how we're proceeding. And what does concern me is that basically, according to the recommendations and conditions, the Heritage Committee doesn't really have any input to the approval of the final design. And that's really something very different, very new for this committee. We're not in the business of approving alterations to heritage properties when we don't have a plan, when we don't have a detailed plan. So that's my concern. And I don't see any reason why we should be left out of the loop. All we're doing really is giving approval in principle, if you like, and leaving it to city staff, basically, to make decisions. But, I think we should have, this committee should have more input than that, so I'm a little concerned about that aspect of it. Thank you.
Other comments on the motion as on the table? Jane?
As I said, I'm really excited about this. However, I am uncomfortable with approving a mural in principle without details from a Heritage Committee point of view. And although Arts and Culture and Heritage Services will have an opportunity to review and approve, I think that it's important that the committee also has an opportunity to review and approve the finalized design as well. And to that end, I'd like to propose an amendment. And perhaps I can give this to Elizabeth. But what I would like to add is to condition 1, City of Kingston's Arts and Culture Services Department, the City Heritage Services Department, and the Kingston Heritage Properties Committee be provided the finalized design for review and approval prior to installation. So we're just adding another group to take a look at it. I guess when we look at signs that come to Heritage Kingston, we look at content and color, and it's very specific what we look at here. And I just think that we probably need a few more details. And I'm hoping that Heritage Kingston can be consulted on this later on in the process. Thanks.
So the motion is to add after Heritage Services Department and the Kingston Heritage Properties Committee. Moved by Jane, I need a seconder. Seconded by Don. Discussion?
Mr. Chair, can we call a 5-minute recess just to allow staff to...
Sorry, we need to just call a slight break on this. So if we're back by about 3 minutes after 10. Okay, Jennifer Campbell.
Thank you, and through you, and thank you to Dawn for this consideration, and Jane, sorry. Sorry, Jane, that was very wrong of me. If it was Jane's consideration that she brought to the floor. We were just having a little bit of discussion. Again, this is an interesting and first-time opportunity for this committee, so the questions we're trying to review are, what is to scope? What is to the mandate of the committee? And what is the appropriate process to move a public art on private property application forward? I think just from having some conversation with our colleagues in arts and culture and here amongst the team, we're wondering if what we might want or suggest to alter the amendment, if we could propose something, I think would be to have an opportunity for the committee to understand or receive the final recommendations or the final submissions for comment. It's the approval authority that we are procedurally trying to figure out what the right path would be. Because there is an existing public art process at the city, which is further complicated by this being on private property, the question of kind of who carries the approval is the one we're really struggling with. And it would seem inappropriate in some regard to assign it just to the Heritage Committee and not to have it perhaps go to any other of the other committees that are present in the City of Kingston. EDI Committee, the Arts Advisory Committee, the new Heritage Programming Committee. Like, there are many committees who could then potentially say, we also would like opportunity to participate. Obviously, we really want this committee to give input to the reality of a mural on this underutilized aspect. And I think the core question to the Heritage Committee, to the mandate of the Heritage Committee, is the impact on the facade and the attributes as defined in the designation. I know it's uncomfortable when we don't have the final proposal, but we have done this, though not specifically for murals. I'm thinking the Paved Paradise installation came to this committee for consultation. It's installed along the street over here. The content of that was never approved by the committee, just the concept. As well, the I in Kingston or I in Kingston sign across the street also came to the committee for consultation. So just some examples, and I know they're not like for like, something we really enjoy having. But I think that just sort of defines where we're at, trying to nest this in the appropriate approval chain. So that's a very long-winded way of saying we're hoping the committee might consider if this amendment is collectively of interest, and I'm not sure it's even been advanced onto the floor per se, other than this discussion, would be if it could be altered in such a way that the committee could, sorry, I'm just looking at the language that we're changing, to provide opportunity for this committee to review the submissions and offer feedback such that the applicants could take that into consideration as part of the final selection. It would extend what is being extended to the Heritage Services Department to the rest of committee.
Okay, if I can, I would suggest that that goes right in at the start so that it reads that the Kingston Heritage Property Committee receive the final proposal for comment and offer feedback, and that the City of Kingston's Art and Culture Services, etc. So it comes to the Properties Committee for comments and then goes, with those comments, go on to the other. Is that basically what you're suggesting?
Just for tidiness sake, my suggestion might be to actually just create a new condition that would say, as part of the review of the submissions, that the members of this committee be circulated with the submissions as received with an opportunity to issue or offer comment, something like that. I just think it's a bit tidier to get it out of the kind of first condition and have it as a separate condition. Just a suggestion.
And since all the conditions are in chronological order, it really should go as number one. And the others be renumbered?
If I could switch, it would go. Which is this right?
Okay, so Jane, what do you want to do?
Well, it's
But can we hear from Jane first of all, so that we've got an idea of what she'd like to do?
The intent of my amendment is for Heritage Kingston to have an opportunity to advise and consult on the mural. So I'm amenable to a condition, changing it, a condition, putting in another condition to specify that. And then that can be determined how we are consulted. It could be the round table, I suppose, so yes, we can write that up slightly differently. I'm fine with that.
Jennifer?
Great. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what you're saying, that it feels like we should be consulted. And not only that, I've proposed a monument to this committee at some point where it was like an artistic project with the National Wall of Remembrance that had that consultation process, and I thought that was good. I didn't find it too like onerous as like, and I really appreciate the feedback. Again, it wasn't an approval process for you guys, it was a consultation, but I think that is actually great. I'm already thinking of buildings that I would like to propose murals on that I'm working with, so I think maybe this is something we should start to like think about how we would address. Because yeah, I mean, I think that like having a way for the community to see more of what it's actually going to be, I think would be good. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Thanks. Sorry, I forgot about the memorial as well. Should have mentioned that when we were talking about what we've done before. So I suspect that where we are at present then is following all of the discussion to add clause number 8, which will say that the Heritage Kingston Properties Committee be provided the opportunity to review and comment on the finalized design prior to installation.
Sorry, can you just put it up on the screen if that's possible? Okay, sorry.
Further discussion while you're putting that up on the screen? Yes, Councillor.
I'm fine with the addition. I think it's a really good way for us to have a look at it, provide a bit of extra comment, and shows that we're kind of doing the job of ensuring that what's going up on a heritage property is something that the community is going to benefit from. So I have no problem with that. I understand the approvals process can be quite complicated, but the opportunity to give feedback is a positive one, I think, and I have no problems with the amendment.
Thank you. I was trying to write and didn't. Final approval. So moved by Jane McFarlane, seconded by Don Taylor, that the recommendation be amended to add a clause that reads that the Kingston Heritage Properties Committee be provided an opportunity to review and comment on the finalized design prior to final approval. I'm not seeing shakings of head from anybody, so that is an amended motion. I'm suggesting it'll be 8. But we will firstly vote on the motion that you don't have on the screen. You have Councillor Oosterhoff on the screen. So the motion to add the extra clause, moved by Jane, seconded by Don. Those, unless there's further discussion, those in favour? Oh, you've got discussion?
If I could, just for a moment, but I think I'm fine with the amendment, but I want to make sure, I mentioned there is a principle involved here, and that we don't want to lose sight of that. In effect, we're being given the opportunity to comment. That doesn't mean that our comments will be taken as important, put it that way. So the situation could arise where this committee says, no, that's terrible, that's totally inappropriate for this wonderful building, and yet it is approved by staff. So we don't want to go there, and I don't think we will go there, but if we are going to find our way to procedures for dealing with this, we should be sure that this committee has real input to the final decision, and that is really our responsibility under the Ontario Heritage Act to ensure that alterations to heritage buildings are circulated to this committee, which has or is supposed to have expertise on city architecture and protection of that architecture. So let's go ahead with this, but remember the bigger picture, I think. Thanks.
I just was going to respond to Dawn about that. I've been through the process, like on the other side as the architect / artist, that the city was very much emphasized the importance of the heritage community and as part of the process. So I don't think like the idea that, we just make comment and knowing that the city's not backing up the committee, I think that's completely false. I think that because that they definitely use our comments and continue our, we're not invisible at all. I got completely the opposite message being on the opposite side, so.
Good, thank you. Further comments on the amendment?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. We wanted to ask if the committee might consider removing the word finalized design and replace it with design submissions. To ask the committee to review a design that has been finalized will likely be too late in the process for the input to alter the outcome. So we're just hoping maybe for that slightly friendly amendment if we could.
I did deliberately change that so that it reads prior to final approval.
This is last meeting of this setting, right? We're gonna throw everything aside. We want to take finalized out and say, comment on the design submissions prior to final approval.
Yep, final, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 second, I'm just going to put this up just so that we're all clear. Make sure that
The recommendation be amended to add a clause that reads that the Kingston Heritage Properties Committee be provided an opportunity to review and comment on the design submissions prior to final approval.
Okay.
Which means it can be changed, but does not have to be. Okay. Further discussion on the amendment, which is no longer on the screen. Seeing none, then voting in favour of adding the amendment. Against? Thank you. That is all in favour. You now have an amended motion. Is there further discussion on the now motion with 8 conditions? And seeing none, then I'll call the vote on the amended motion. Those in favour? Those opposed? Good, thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Hope you learned a little bit. And thank you for being so patient with that. We move on to, well, we stay with Philip. Philip's the only presenter this morning. 244252 King Street, that should be. 41 William Street, the Kilbourne Properties. And we have owners. Oh, this is just a great last meeting, isn't it? You can just see everybody's.
We're good.
Oh, there we go.
Through you, Mr. Chair. This presentation encompasses two approvals, both of which are for 244 through 252 King Street East and 41 William Street, colloquially known as the Kilbourne. For reference, this is one property, despite the multiple addresses. I will first go over the site, and then I will focus on the first application, which is related to the fascia replacement, and then I will follow up with a collection of the works that encompass the second application. The Kilbourne is located on the corner of King Street East and William Street, which is kitty corner to the Frontenac Club Hotel. The single property contains several addresses and features a pair of connected 2.5-story brick homes which sit on a high stone foundation. This property is designated under Parts 4 and 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and the entire review of this can be found in the associated report. This is the rest of it as well, because it's a long one. So we'll begin with application P18-131-2022. The intent of this proposal is to replace PVC material in various locations at the subject property, namely behind all eavesdrops along the flat building of 244 King Street East and the northwestern wooden gable at 41 William Street, as well as the rear dormers of 256 and 257 King Street East. Importantly, only the fascia material that has no architectural detailing is proposed to be removed. The proposed PVC is meant to match the color, finish, and profile of the existing wooden fascia. In fact, we have Adair here who's brought in some samples for us, which we'll be taking a look at in just a couple moments. This change is related to the cost concerns related with maintaining and restoring the existing wood fascia. The majority of these fascia changes will be either away from public view or will be so far away they'll be nearly indistinguishable from the existing wood fascia. However, as we can see up here in the green box, the fascia replacement along the northwestern end gable at 41 William Street will be the most visible and could pose the largest public realm impact. As that fascia directly faces William Street, when walking southeast, the change material could be recognized. As such, staff will require that the applicant provide finalized color and designs of the proposed PVC material prior to installation to confirm that it would be sympathetic to the rest of the highly visible facade, and this is a condition of approval. Maintaining original wood material is always preferred, but the visual impact should be mitigated via the location of most of the PVC material and where it's proposed to be mostly obscured or far away from view, and the rest, especially at 41 William Street, should be mitigated by staff review when consulting the material choice. Staff will be very interested in seeing how this product weathers over time on this particular building. Next, we will consider the other applications submitted for the Kilbourne. This is P18-130-2022. The majority of these alterations are large-scale maintenance exercises that will result in a like-for-like replacement. However, there are some select changes, such as the flat roof material replacement, that will deviate from the existing. It is proposed that the property be restored via repointing various masonry walls in most chimneys, reinstating slip bricks along various fassoirs, releveling a catch basin to address water infiltration, and by repairing via like-for-like replacement of select areas of deteriorated stairs to the courtyard. All these stoneworks will follow the city's masonry policy. This is a condition of approval. The skylights, as well as the existing door, will be replaced like for like in terms of their color, material, and design. Should the proposed designs change prior to installation, staff will be circulated the finalized color and designs for review to confirm it meets the intent of this approval. Next, the applicant seeks to add a few eavesdrops in new locations off King Street to better control runoff. This visual impact will be minimal as the installations will be limited, and these net new systems should better preserve the building's wooden features from water infiltration and, most importantly, control existing runoff that is damaging the wooden features of the property. Finally, the applicant also seeks to change the flat roof on the top of the building from red asphalt, which you can see up here, to black EPDM material. This change should not be visible from the public realm at street level. This flat roof is, I almost never even knew it existed until it was pointed out to me, frankly. It was so, anyways, it blended in very well. Here's the first recommendation that details the fascia replacement. And here is the second recommendation related to the other proposed works at the Kilbourne. Both sets of recommendations in their entirety are available in the associated report for review. Just as a reminder, this will be two separate motions that will go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil. Sorry for my smiling during that. I have the translation, I think it is, of what Phil was saying, and it is somewhat disastrous. Dash comments, any concerns with the way they were reported? Seeing none. Members of the public making comments or asking questions, do you want to speak at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize, even with my hearing aids, I'm really hard of hearing and I'm not catching very much. The only thing I did catch had to do with the flat roof, which shows in the picture as being red. It's really much closer to the color of the shingles of the roof. But regardless, when the building would have been built, I doubt very much that they would have had colored granules and it would have just been a tarred roof, so it would have been black. So what we're actually doing is going back to something closer to the original appearance on that one. Thank you.
Nobody with us on Zoom? No. Committee members, questions? Jennifer.
I was actually just going to comment about the EPDM roof. If you can't see it, white's actually usually a better color because of the heat. So if it's black, you're going to get a lot more heat absorption. And a lot of commercial buildings and people that use EPDM now are moving to white, just so that you get. So I mean, it helps with like the heat island effect, but yeah, it helps with heat transfer into the building itself. So.
Spoken like a true architect, thank you. Further comments, questions? Don.
Well, just replying to Jennifer, yes, she makes a good point. However, I think the committee might have trouble with white roofs all over Kingston. So in the past, we've mostly preferred gray roofing materials, maybe middle gray, light gray. In this case, it doesn't matter very much, but that's just something to keep in mind for the future.
Thank you. Further comments? Seeing none. Final comments? And seeing none, then we move on to, now there are two applications here. So we'll start with, sorry? All one motion? No, that is easy then. Okay, so you have one recommendation with 9 conditions, and you have a second recommendation with 5 conditions, and they take up 2 pages there. They are not amenable and not amendable or anything. Looking for a mover for the whole works, Jane, and seconded by Dunn. Thank you very much. And Councillor Oosterhoff was joining in as well. Further discussion? Seeing none, those in favour? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, and good luck. It's a huge job, we realise, and we really appreciate you coming, and Philip, for the work you've put into it as well. It's such a prominent corner there, and it's wonderful to be looking after it. So we move on to 66 Earl Street. Again, part 5. You've given your comments through Dash, and Philip will talk to us about this one.
Through you, Mr. Chair. This is an alteration proposal that seeks to add an additional dormer to an approved dormer to the southeastern side of 66 Earl Street, as this committee has seen relatively recently. 66 Earl Street is located near the corner of the intersection of Earl and Wellington Streets in the heart of the Old Sydenham Heritage Character Area. 66 Earl Street is one half of a 5-bay, 2-story stone double house with a hammer-dressed limestone exterior and a hipped roof with 3 chimneys. The property is designated under Parts 4 and 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and the relevant bylaw and district plan property inventory evaluation information are included in the report for your review. So the subject application largely fulfills the goals of the HCD plan and upholds the recommendations of the standards and guidelines. Despite this, the property's dormer alteration/addition will have some limited impacts on the public realm/property, since most of the newly proposed window will be visible from the street and public realm. The dormer's roof ridge height exceeds the existing building's hipped roof line, and the dormer alters the roof profile visible from select angles when viewed from the street. So we can see over here, except it will not be orange. In addition, while half of the building is not on the corner lot, the alterations to the mid-block portion of this duplex are occurring on a prominent building that reads as a singular corner lot property when viewed from the public realm. Finally, the awning window style is not compatible with the style/character of the building or district, especially as it is visible on a street-facing facade. Despite all of these things, this applicant's plans have minimized these concerns while proposing a relatively sympathetic dormer design. The proposed gabled dormer on a mid-block building is in alignment with zoning, includes a rectangular aluminum-clad wood window on a non-character defining elevation, is limited in size, should mostly be obscured by a wide southeastern chimney and closely packed building street wall, has positioned the dormer/window in an area not visible from the most important elevations, which are the southwestern facade, which is at the front, and the northeastern facade, which is to the side. Further, while the proposed dormer does not follow the roof line, its pitch matches the hipped roof's pitch. Importantly, staff have further amended, or not further, but we have amended the proposal to require that the dormer be clad in a dark colored wood from the bottom of the proposed windowsill to the top of the dormer, so that it will have a distinct cladding that is different from the principal building, while while also being sympathetic and subordinate to the building. Moreover, staff are amending the proposed window design to require simulated divided lights and the same size and profile as the existing window exists on the southeastern facade. Both of these changes are conditions of approval. While the dormer will be visible from the street, the size of the dormer addition, its design, with the condition changes proposed in the recommendation of this report, and its location limits its impacts. The amended proposal will allow the new dormer to read as its own, distinct but subordinate addition. Finally, the rear balcony alterations that are proposed are appropriate as they are not a significant deviation from the previous balcony, as is mainly glass, which have many examples in the district, and the removal of the black framing around the top of the glass may actually help it blend into the background better than previously approved. These are the recommended alterations here. And the highlighted text are staff's condition changes to the proposed window and dormer design. The entire recommendation in its entirety can be found in your associated report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Members, can you confirm your dash comments? And seeing no objections, members of the public? Sorry?
No hands in public, but Todd Biggerman is here to speak in case there's questions.
Okay. Committee members asking questions on this? Oh, very good. My only comment on this one would be that I think this proved the value of site visits. Don and I were there, and if you look at the photograph on page 114, I thought it was shown on the screen. Mark tried to show the proposal in a great big orange sheet. And we went down on the street and he looked up and he said, "Oh my goodness, I don't think I want what I'm proposing." And from that came this new proposal. It was fascinating. I was most surprised when I saw the final come in. So go to site visits and see what there is. Otherwise, no comments, no questions. Looking then for a motion to approve a recommendation with three parts to it and 6 conditions. Paul, seconded by Councillor Glenn. Further discussion? Seeing none, those in favour? We have Councillor Ustav voting and nobody therefore against, so that is carried. Thank you very much. We come on to the Heritage Kingston 2022 annual report, which is attached to your package. Can we do questions and comments on that? Is it? Yep. If anybody has questions or comments on that one, it's page 121. I have read it. Don has read it. Seeing none then, I look for a motion to approve it. It goes on to council so they know what we have been doing for the year. Moved by Don, seconded by Jennifer. Thank you very much. Further discussion? And seeing none, those in favour, those against, that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Emergency approvals? No emergency approvals in the winter. Wow. No motions, obviously no notices of motion. Jennifer, other business.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take this opportunity from staff to thank all of the members of the current Heritage Committee for your service and work on this committee and support of staff over the last several years. I know we have new committees forming, and the Heritage Properties Committee will meet for the first time in March, and the Heritage Programming Committee will meet for the first time in April. And we're excited and prepping for those orientations and those sessions to come. But I did just want to take this opportunity to give thanks to all of you who have participated as members of the public and brought your expertise and advice to the table. I also did want to share, for everyone's awareness, because we now will have roundtable opportunities to come and hear about applications as they move forward. We're going to share the information about the dates and times of those meetings on the Heritage Planning website of the City of Kingston. If you are individually interested in knowing when those meetings will be happening, please reach out to us, either directly to any of our emails if you know them, but otherwise to the heritageplanning@cityofkingston.ca email, and that's true for members of the public as well. Our thought right now is because we have a moment of transition between this committee and the next. It's an interesting time. We've got comments from this committee already on reports that will be considered by the next committee. So we are working through that transition. It does mean that we expect the first roundtable will handle the new incoming processes that have not been considered by this committee yet. So the roundtable will meet after the first meeting of the new Heritage Properties Committee to make sure there's a clarity of kind of who's offering input into those processes and how we're going to handle them. So again, thanks again for being here. We appreciate you. Cheers.
Thank you very much. I would also like to add a thanks to committee members, some of you somewhat new, some of you for many years, and thank you for all the hard work you have done. Good luck in your future, especially two of you who are going on to the Heritage Properties group, and I hope that our paths can meet again. You have correspondence in there from the Ontario Heritage Trust, and there is no next meeting. Thank you, Elizabeth, for all your work while you've been assigned to us, and I look for a motion to adjourn forever. Oh, everybody, thank you. Forever, it's got to be there. Thanks indeed, all of you.